Paris, July 27, 1794. The sun hasn't risen yet, but the streets are already awake. A man sits alone in a room at the Hôtel de Ville. His jaw is shattered. Blood pools on the desk before him. He cannot speak, cannot scream, but his eyes, those pale green eyes that once commanded an entire nation, they burn with something that looks like fear. Outside, thousands gather, not to save him, to watch him fall. His name is Maximilien Robespierre, and in a few hours, he will be dead. But the blood started flowing long before tonight. It started the moment he decided that virtue, pure, incorruptible virtue, was worth any price, even if that price was 10,000 heads. This is the story of how a lawyer from a small town became the architect of history's most efficient killing machine. How noble ideas twisted into nightmares. How the revolution that promised liberty devoured its own children, one by one by one. This is the story of the terror. And it begins not with Robespierre, but with a king. France, 1789. The smell of bread. Or rather, the absence of it. Walk through any street in Paris that spring and you'll hear the same sound. Stomachs growling. Children crying. Women arguing with bakers over crusts that cost more than a week's wages. The kingdom is starving. Not because there's no food, but because the people who grow it can't afford to eat it. King Louis XVI sits in Versailles, 40 miles away, where the chandeliers hold more candles than most families will see in a lifetime. He's a good man, by most accounts. Soft-spoken, interested in locks and metalwork, utterly unprepared to rule a country spiraling toward chaos. His wife, Marie Antoinette, has never said, "Let them eat cake." That's a myth. But she doesn't need to. Her Austrian gowns and diamond necklaces say it for her. The nobility pay almost no taxes. The clergy pay none at all. The burden falls entirely on the third estate, everyone else. Farmers, merchants, lawyers, 98% of France, carrying the weight of an empire that despises them. Something has to break. In May 1789, it does. The Estates General convenes for the first time in 175 years. It's supposed to solve the crisis. Instead, it creates a new one. The Third Estate, tired of being outvoted by the privileged few, breaks away. They declare themselves the National Assembly. They swear an oath in a tennis court, of all places, that they will not disband until France has a constitution. The king surrounds Paris with troops. The people surround the Bastille. July 14, 1789. The prison fortress falls. Not because it holds political prisoners. It holds 7 inmates, mostly forgers. It falls because it's a symbol of royal tyranny. And symbols bleed just like men. The governor's head is paraded through the streets on a pike. The revolution has begun. And somewhere in that crowd, adjusting his green-tinted spectacles, is a 31-year-old lawyer named Maximilien Robespierre. He believes in justice, in equality, in the rights of man. He has no idea what he's about to become. Robespierre doesn't look like a revolutionary. He's short, 5'3", slight build, powdered wig always perfectly arranged. He dresses like a gentleman, all clean cravats and pressed waistcoats, even when fashion turns toward the rough carmagnole jackets of the sans-culottes, the without breeches workers who become the revolution's beating heart. He's nicknamed the Incorruptible. It's meant as a compliment. And at first, it is. Robespierre was born in Arras, a provincial town in northern France. His mother died when he was 6. His father, a lawyer, abandoned the family. Young Maximilien was raised by relatives, won a scholarship to school in Paris, excelled in Latin and philosophy. He read Rousseau, over and over. The social contract. The idea that government exists only by the will of the people. That man is born free but is everywhere in chains. He became a lawyer, not a lucrative one. He defended the poor, argued against the death penalty, called it barbaric, incompatible with a just society. Remember that. It matters later. When the revolution comes, Robespierre is elected to the Estates General. He's not a gifted speaker. His voice is thin, high-pitched. He stammers when nervous, but he's relentless. He speaks for hours, arguing for universal male suffrage, freedom of the press, the abolition of slavery. The other deputies respect him, even when they disagree. He lives simply, rents a room from a carpenter named Maurice Duplay on the Rue Sainte-Anne, eats dinner with the family every night, plays with the children, falls in love, perhaps, with the eldest daughter, Eleanor, though they never marry. He refuses bribes, refuses luxuries. He owns almost nothing. When friends suggest he deserves better accommodations, he refuses. "I need nothing," he says, "but a clear conscience." This is the Robespierre of 1789, the idealist, the incorruptible. But the revolution is a forge, and it's about to change him. June 1791. The king tries to escape. Louis XVI and his family, disguised as servants, flee Paris in an unmarked carriage. They're heading for the border, hoping to rally foreign armies to crush the revolution and restore absolute power. They make it as far as Varennes, a small town near the frontier. Someone recognizes the king's face from a coin. The carriage is stopped. They're dragged back to Paris in shame. The fiction that Louis is a constitutional monarch, a partner in reform, dies in that carriage. The people see the truth. Their king wanted to destroy them, wanted to bring foreign armies to burn their cities and hang their leaders. Robespierre argues that the king must face trial, that monarchy itself must end. Not everyone agrees. Many revolutionaries still believe in compromise, in constitutional monarchy. They argue that executing a king will turn all of Europe against France. They are right, of course. But Robespierre doesn't care about what Europe thinks. The people are sovereign, he declares. A king is nothing. It's a dangerous argument, and it makes him enemies. But it also makes him powerful. April 1792. France declares war on Austria. It's supposed to be a short, victorious campaign. Instead, it's a disaster. French armies are poorly trained, under-equipped. They suffer defeat after defeat. Enemy forces march toward Paris. The revolution is in danger. And when revolutions are in danger, they look for traitors. August 10th, 1792. A mob storms the Tuileries Palace. The Swiss guards fight back. 800 of them are slaughtered. Some are literally torn apart by the crowd. The king and his family flee to the National Assembly for protection. The monarchy is suspended. France is now, effectively, a republic. But the war goes badly. The fortress of Verdun falls. Paris is exposed. Rumors spread that royalists inside the city, prisoners, priests, nobles, are planning to break out, to open the gates for the invading armies. The rumors are almost certainly false. But fear doesn't care about truth. September 2nd, 1792. The killing begins. Over the next 5 days, mobs storm the prisons of Paris. They hold impromptu trials in the courtyards, each lasting minutes. Guilty, guilty, guilty. Then the executions. Priests are hacked apart with sabers. Nobles are bludgeoned. Women are stripped and mutilated. The Princesse de Lamballe, a lady-in-waiting to Marie Antoinette, is raped, dismembered, and her head paraded beneath the Queen's window. Somewhere between 1,200 and 1,400 people die. The September massacres. Robespierre doesn't organize them, doesn't participate, but he doesn't condemn them either. Later, he'll call them regrettable but necessary. The people, he says, were defending the revolution. It's the first crack in the incorruptible facade. January 21st, 1793. King Louis XVI is executed. The guillotine is new. Designed by a doctor named Joseph Ignace Guillotine as a humane alternative to hanging or the axe. The blade falls. The head drops into a basket. Death is instant. Or so they say. Louis's execution takes place in the Place de la Révolution, now the Place de la Concorde. Thousands watch. Some cheer. Some weep. The executioner holds up the severed head and the crowd roars. Europe is horrified. Within weeks, Britain, Spain, the Netherlands, and the Italian states join Austria and Prussia in a coalition against France. The revolution is now fighting nearly every major power on the continent. And inside France, civil war erupts. The Vendée region, deeply Catholic and royalist, rises in rebellion. Peasants armed with pitchforks and hunting rifles massacre revolutionary officials. In the cities, riots break out over food shortages. In Lyon, Marseille, Toulon, moderates try to break away from Paris's radical government. The revolution is surrounded, outnumbered, fracturing from within. This is when the Committee of Public Safety is formed. 12 men, tasked with defending the revolution by any means necessary. Robespierre joins in July 1793. At first, he's one voice among many. But he's patient. And he's ruthless. Within months, he'll control the committee. And the committee will control France. The guillotine works day and night. The sound of it becomes part of the city's rhythm. The crowd gathers in the morning. The carts arrive, wooden tumbrils packed with prisoners. Men and women, young and old. Aristocrats and servants. Priests and prostitutes. They're read their sentences, usually in groups. Then the blade falls. Thud. Again. Thud. Again. Thud. The blood runs into the gutters. The executioner's assistants, called valets, rinse the scaffold between batches. But there's so much blood that the pavement stains red. Nearby residents complain about the smell. The machine is efficient. 15 executions per hour, if the executioner is skilled. And in Paris, he is very skilled. His name is Charles-Henri Sanson. He's a hereditary executioner. His family has done this work for generations. He hates Robespierre. Hates what the terror has become. But he does his job. Because refusing means joining the condemned. By the summer of 1794, Sanson will have executed nearly 3,000 people in Paris alone. In the provinces, the numbers are worse. Robespierre doesn't attend the executions. He works from a desk. In the green room of the Committee of Public Safety, inside the Tuileries. He reads reports, signs arrest warrants, drafts speeches. He rarely sleeps. Suffers from chronic illnesses, bleeding ulcers, nosebleeds, migraines. He drinks barley water and eats sparingly. His hands shake when he writes, but his mind is sharp. He genuinely believes he's saving France, that the terror is temporary, a necessary purge, like a doctor amputating a gangrenous limb to save the body. Terror, he says in a speech, is nothing other than swift, severe, indomitable justice. He links terror to virtue, argues that without terror, virtue is powerless. Without virtue, terror is horrific. But with both, France can be reborn, a republic of equals, of citizens who love their country more than themselves. It's beautiful, in a way. It's also insane. The law of suspects, passed in September 1793. It's the law that turns France into a police state. Under the law of suspects, anyone can be arrested for almost anything. Supporting the monarchy, criticizing the revolution, hoarding grain, being related to an émigré, failing to show sufficient enthusiasm for Republican values. There's no clear definition of what makes someone a suspect. That's the point. The Revolutionary Tribunal, the court that tries political crimes, stops requiring evidence, stops allowing defense lawyers. Trials last minutes. Convictions are nearly automatic. And the punishment is always the same: death. In October 1793, Marie Antoinette is tried. She's accused of treason, incest with her own son, and conspiring with foreign powers. The incest charge is absurd, fabricated by prosecutors desperate to destroy her reputation. Even the jury looks uncomfortable when it's read aloud. She's convicted anyway. Her hair has turned white in prison. She's 37 but looks 60. On the morning of her execution, she accidentally steps on the executioner's foot climbing the scaffold. "Pardon me, monsieur," she says. "I did not do it on purpose." Her last words. The blade falls. The crowd cheers. But aristocrats aren't the only ones dying. Robespierre turns on his former allies. The Girondins, moderate Republicans who once supported the revolution but now argue for restraint, are arrested en masse. 21 of them are executed in a single day. Jacques Hebert, a radical journalist who demands even more violence, is guillotined for being too extreme. Georges Danton, once Robespierre's friend, a man who helped create the Committee of Public Safety, is arrested for being too lenient, for suggesting the terror should end. Danton's trial is a spectacle. He's a giant of a man, loud and charismatic. He bellows at the judges, demands witnesses. Robespierre doesn't attend, doesn't need to. The verdict is already decided. April 5th, 1794. Danton is guillotined. His last words to the executioner, "Show my head to the people." It's worth seeing. The revolution is eating itself. And Robespierre, he's grown quieter, more isolated. He trusts almost no one. Paranoia has replaced ideology. June 1794. The festival of the Supreme Being. Robespierre has decided that atheism is dangerous, that France needs a new religion, one based on reason and virtue. He creates the cult of the Supreme Being, a deist belief system that acknowledges a higher power but rejects organized religion. On June 8th, he organizes a massive festival in Paris. Hundreds of thousands attend. There are flowers, hymns, processions. An artificial mountain is built in the Champ de Mars. Robespierre, dressed in a blue coat and white stockings, leads the ceremony. He gives a speech about virtue and immortality. He looks like a high priest. It terrifies people. Because in revolutionary France, you don't become a god without making enemies. And Robespierre's enemies are multiplying. The Law of 22 Prairial. June 10th, 1794. It's the final escalation. The new law strips away the last protections for the accused. No more witnesses for the defense. No more preliminary investigations. Trials are even faster. Sentences even harsher. The definition of enemy of the people becomes so broad that it includes almost anything. Spreading false news. Demoralizing the army. Depraving morals. In the 6 weeks following the law's passage, 1,376 people are executed in Paris alone. The guillotine runs red. The city smells like death. And Robespierre. He's disappeared from public view. He's exhausted, paranoid. He stops attending committee meetings. Holes up in the Duplay house. People whisper that he's planning another purge, that a new list is being prepared, that no one is safe. The truth? There probably is no list. But fear doesn't care about truth. July 26th, 1794. Robespierre returns to the National Convention. He gives a speech, a rambling, 2-hour speech about virtue and conspiracy. He hints that traitors have infiltrated the government, that another purge is necessary. But he doesn't name names. That's his mistake. Because when everyone thinks they might be next, everyone becomes your enemy. That night, the deputies who feel threatened form a coalition. Moderates and extremists. Rivals who've hated each other for years. But they hate Robespierre more. July 27th, 1794. 9 Thermidor, by the revolutionary calendar. Robespierre tries to speak at the convention. His allies try to defend him. But they're shouted down. Down with the tyrant. Someone screams. The vote is called. Robespierre and his closest supporters, Saint-Just, Couthon, his brother Augustin, are declared outlaws. Outlaws have no legal protections, no trial. They can be executed immediately. Robespierre flees to the Hôtel de Ville, the city hall, hoping the Paris Commune will protect him. Some National Guardsmen rally to his side. But not enough. The convention sends troops. They surround the building. Inside, chaos. Someone fires a pistol. The bullet strikes Robespierre in the jaw. It's unclear who pulled the trigger. Some say he tried to shoot himself. Others say it was a gendarme. Either way, his face is destroyed. He lies on a table, bleeding, conscious but unable to speak. A surgeon ties his shattered jaw with a bandage. All night, he waits. At dawn, the troops storm in. They find him still alive. Barely. They drag him to the convention. Then to the Conciergerie prison. The same prison where Marie Antoinette spent her last days. July 28, 1794. 5 p.m. The tumbrils arrive. Robespierre lies in the cart, his head propped on a wooden plank. The bandage around his jaw is soaked with blood. His eyes are open but distant. The crowd is massive. Larger than for the king. Larger than for the queen. They scream at him. Throw things. Curse his name. Drink the blood of the French, someone shouts. At the scaffold, the executioner, Sanson, removes the bandage. Robespierre's jaw falls open. He screams. A terrible, gurgling scream. Then the blade falls. The crowd erupts. His body, along with those of 21 supporters, is thrown into an unmarked grave and covered with quicklime. No monument. No marker. The Incorruptible is gone. But the killing doesn't stop immediately. Over the next 2 days, 83 more of Robespierre's allies are executed. The terror officially ends, but the violence continues in waves. The Thermidorian reaction, the period after Robespierre's fall, brings its own brutality. Royalists and moderates hunt down former Jacobins. Lynchings. Assassinations. The White Terror, they call it. France is exhausted. Traumatized. Between 1793 and 1794, the terror claimed at least 17,000 official executions. Tens of thousands more died in prison or were killed without trial. In the Vendée, entire villages were burned. Men, women, children. Some historians call it genocide. Others call it civil war. The truth is probably both. So what do we make of Robespierre? The man who argued against the death penalty, then signed thousands of death warrants. The incorruptible idealist who became the face of tyranny. Some see him as a monster, a fanatic drunk on power. Others see him as a tragic figure, a man who believed so deeply in virtue that he lost sight of humanity. The philosopher Albert Camus wrote, "The revolution of the 20th century is the heir of Robespierre." He meant that every totalitarian regime, left or right, owes something to the idea that violence can purify, that terror can be virtuous. Stalin, Hitler, Mao, they all read their Robespierre. But here's the thing. Robespierre never wanted power for himself. He lived like a monk, died poor, believed, until the end, that he was serving the people. And that might be the most terrifying part, because the worst atrocities aren't always committed by sadists. Sometimes they're committed by believers. Today, if you visit Paris, you can walk the Rue Sainte-Anne. The Dupleix House is gone, replaced by ordinary buildings. The Place de la Révolution is now the Place de la Concorde. Tourists take photos. Children play. The guillotine is long gone. But if you stand there at dusk, when the light fades and the crowds thin, you can almost hear it. Thud. The sound of the blade. Falling. Again and again. 4 months. 4 years. Until the streets ran red and France forgot what it was fighting for. Robespierre believed that terror, wielded by the virtuous, could create a perfect society. He was wrong. But his ghost still haunts us. Every time someone says the ends justify the means. Every time we sacrifice the innocent to save the many. Every time we convince ourselves that a little cruelty now will bring paradise later. We are standing in Robespierre's shadow. And the blade is still falling.